How do you go from being one of the most celebrated faces in the world to being left with nothing? It's a question that carries both heartbreak and disbelief, the kind of fall that feels almost impossible until it happens. I would love to just be able to be sad and miss him, she once said softly, her voice trembling between grief and confusion. And not also feel this incredible hurt at his betrayal. Paulina Porizkova was the supermodel who had it all. Vogue covers, million-dollar contracts, a marriage to a rock star. Her life looked like a modern fairy tale written in flashbulbs and fame. From the outside, she was untouchable, the woman every camera adored. But beneath the glittering surface, her story was never only about beauty. It was a story about love, loss, and survival, about a girl who learned too early that even perfection could come at a cost. It began with a childhood marked by abandonment, and it ended with a betrayal that stunned the world. So what really happened to the woman once called the most beautiful in the world? And why does her downfall still stand as one of fashion's most heartbreaking stories? Paulina Porizkova's life started far away from the glamour of Paris runways and the flashing lights of New York studios. Born in Czechoslovakia in 1965, her world was one of grey skies, fear, and political unrest. Her parents fled the country during the Soviet invasion, leaving their small daughter behind. While they sought freedom, Paulina was left to be raised by her grandmother, a woman of quiet strength who tried to shield her from the pain of being left behind. For years, Paulina lived as a child who believed she had been forgotten. That absence, that deep, hollow feeling of being unwanted, planted a seed that would follow her into every part of her adult life. She grew up thinking love was something you had to earn, not something freely given. But then, everything changed. At just 15, a friend secretly sent her photos to a modeling agency. Almost overnight, Paulina went from a shy teenager in Sweden to a girl boarding a plane for Paris, chasing a dream she didn't even know she had. At first, Paris didn't know what to make of her. She was too foreign, too different, too far from the all-American ideal that dominated fashion. But that difference, those sharp cheekbones, almond eyes, that mysterious quiet beauty became her secret weapon. Slowly, the city began to notice. And once it did, Paulina Porizkova was everywhere. Vogue, Elle, Harper's Bazaar. Her face appeared on magazine covers across continents. By her early 20s, she had landed a multimillion-dollar contract with Estée Lauder, one of the most lucrative modeling deals of the 1980s. She was one of the highest-paid women in fashion, celebrated as one of the most beautiful people alive. And yet, in her own words, beauty didn't feel like a blessing. "Fame puts us on top of a mountain," she once said. "You can be seen by everyone, but you're alone. It's cold. It's windy." That was the paradox of her fame. Millions could see her, but few ever truly knew her. Behind every stunning photo, there was a woman quietly aching for connection. Even at the height of success, Paulina felt the loneliness that came with being more image than person. That loneliness had deep roots. It began when she was just a toddler, watching her parents disappear in search of a better life. The pain of that separation never really left her. While other children went home to mothers and fathers, Paulina waited year after year for parents who weren't there. Her childhood became a story of survival, of learning to smile through absence. Her family's story even reached international headlines. Newspapers wrote about the child left behind, and Sweden's Prime Minister, Olof Palme, eventually helped reunite her with her parents. But by then, the emotional damage was done. "My parents left me when I was little," she would later say. "That just stuck with me forever, that I'm really not that great. And as soon as you find out how not great I am, you will also leave me." School offered little comfort. Her classmates mocked her accent, her looks, her clothes. They called her ugly, and those words carved themselves into her memory. "I didn't believe I was beautiful," she admitted years later. "I had gone through my childhood being extremely seen but absolutely unheard." That line became the key to understanding her entire life. She was visible but voiceless. Applauded but unseen. Those early wounds, abandonment, ridicule, the constant need to prove herself built both her drive and her fragility. She learned early that affection was something she had to perform for. "I had to tap dance for love," she once said. It made her ambitious, resilient but also terrified of losing the people she loved. So when she met him, Rick Ocasek, the enigmatic frontman of the Cars, she thought she had finally found safety. She was 19, he was older, married, famous. To her, he seemed like a protector, a man who could never leave. Their connection was instant and intense, and soon they were inseparable. At the same time, her career soared even higher. By the late 1980s, Paulina was one of the most recognizable women in the world. Sports Illustrated made her a two-time cover star, a rare honor that solidified her status as a legend. Yet, she never saw modeling as glamorous. "To me, a model is sort of like an apple in a still life," she said. "People polish it, place it, light it perfectly, and then they paint it." To the world, she was perfection. To herself, she was a prop, a carefully arranged image. Still, that image made her one of fashion's biggest names. She walked for Dior, Chanel, Versace. She stood beside supermodels like Cindy Crawford and Linda Evangelista, not just as a peer, but as a rival for the title of most beautiful woman alive. From the outside, it looked like a dream. The perfect marriage. The perfect career. But behind the flashbulbs, cracks were forming. Rick began to downplay her achievements, calling modeling superficial. Gradually, Paulina stepped away from the spotlight, focusing on their home, their children, their life together. Friends disappeared. The world she had built shrank around her. She once called herself the captain of the ship, steering their life while carrying the weight alone. And then came the silence. The love that once felt protective began to feel like a cage. By her late 40s, they were living apart. After nearly 30 years of marriage, she had to face the truth: the relationship that once made her feel cherished had slowly made her invisible. Still, she never stopped caring for him. Even during their separation, she cooked for him, helped him recover from illness, and remained by his side. Then, one September morning in 2019, everything stopped. Rick passed away suddenly at home, and it was Paulina who found him. In that instant, the man who had defined her life was gone. The grief was overwhelming, but what came next was even worse. When his will was read, she discovered she had been cut out completely. He had written that she had abandoned him. That single word shattered her. Abandonment. The very fear that had haunted her since childhood had returned in the cruelest way possible, written in legal ink by the man she had cared for until his final breath. The headlines were merciless. Supermodel left penniless. People couldn't believe it. The woman who once earned millions now couldn't afford groceries. For her, it wasn't about the money, it was the message. The betrayal. "I loved this man for 35 years, she said. "It's hard for me to believe that if he had thought a little more about it, it would have been okay." The wound went deeper than loss. It was as if her whole identity had been erased. Eventually, the courts granted her a small settlement, but no amount could repair what had been broken. She was grieving, broke, and utterly alone. Then came the pandemic, a quiet world that only made her loneliness echo louder. That's when she turned to Instagram. There, she began posting raw, unfiltered photos, tear-streaked faces, trembling confessions. "That was me drowning," she later said. "You watched me struggle to stay alive." Critics called her the lady who cries on Instagram, but behind the mockery was something powerful. For the first time, she wasn't just being seen. She was being heard. Thousands connected with her words, people who had also lost love, youth, purpose. Together, they built a strange kind of healing. That honesty became her rebirth. In 2022, she published No Filter, a collection of essays about aging, love, and invisibility. Being heard is better than being seen, she wrote a sentence that perfectly captured her transformation. She spoke openly about her early career, about harassment being disguised as compliments, about what it meant to be both idolized and dismissed. This time, people didn't just listen, they respected her voice. Her grief became her strength. And slowly, it brought her back into the light. In 2024, she returned to Sports Illustrated as part of its Swimsuit Legends feature, standing proudly beside women like Tyra Banks and Christy Brinkley. At nearly 60, she posed not as a fantasy, but as a statement: beauty doesn't vanish with age. And then came the moment no one saw coming. Estée Lauder, the brand that once made her a global star, invited her back as an ambassador. This time, the message wasn't perfection. It was power, the beauty of surviving, of being real, of still being visible. For Paulina, it was a full circle moment. The young woman once photographed into silence had become a woman heard for her truth. Her story of beauty, betrayal, and rebirth reminds us that fame may fade, but voice endures. So what do we really remember her for? The face that once defined an era, or the courage that finally made us look past it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.